Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me just say that we get it. Personal development can be hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Project Endure has been on a mission to create a supportive and inspiring community of people, all striving to be better together. Head down to the link in the show notes and join the Hard Things Club so that we can do hard things together. And if you're already a member, invite a friend and spread the love. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 101. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very, very special guest here in person in the third floor of my home right now, Dave Wallace. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. This has been a long time coming. We got connected through a previous client of mine and a friend of yours. Billy, if you're listening, we appreciate you for connecting us. And I feel like our journey together has been an interesting one. There have been a lot of ups and a lot of downs, not in terms of our relationship, but in terms of what we had been working toward. I'm excited to talk a little bit about that, but really I'm just excited to dive into your life story because you have a lot of good things to share. So with that being said, Dave, how would you introduce yourself to people who don't know you?
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be in your home and have a seat at your table. Anybody listening to this knows you and knows the great man you are and what Project Endure stands for. So I am honored to even be sharing this conversation with you. But my name is David Wallace. Been born and raised in Poughkeepsie, New York. By trade, I'm an active duty officer in the Army. And I'm an avid doer of hard things, I'd say. And that is what has brought us together, certainly.
Yeah, that was a great, concise introduction. And there's a lot more beneath the surface that we'll dive into. But who are you outside of the work that you do and the fitness element of who you are? If you had to strip those two things away and give kind of a description of who you are at your core, let's say, let's go deep right from the start here. Who would you say you are?
Geez. Well, first of all, this is the first time I've ever recorded anything or been interviewed. So this is all new to me. And I'm also not used to talking about myself, and I'm about to do probably an hour of exactly that. But I'm well known for being an intense guy, and I'm an intense I'm an intense friend. I'm intense with everything I do, and when I want something, I obsess over it, and I attack in a relentless pursuit to accomplish what I set forth in front of me. And I'm a big believer in doing the things that I say that I will do, and that's the example that I want to set for my children one day. And I'm a very family oriented man. Family is everything to me. Family is number one. And I would be nowhere without the support system I call my family. That is my immediate family. My mother Leah, my father Craig, and they are the foundation of my support system, as well as my wife Brianna. So they have always been in my corner, and I could not have done the difficult things I've done in my life without their support.
Yeah, that was a great answer. I would also love to hear more about your wife because rewind a month, she was your fiance. Rewind a month and a few days, she was your girlfriend. And so things move quick in the Wallace household. But There was some behind the scenes conversation that you and I had as to how that would all unfold. And I was so excited for you. And it looks like it all played out beautifully. But I'd love to hear about that process, really, how and when you knew that Bree was going to be your wife, and then the proposal itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, geez, she's gonna kill me for saying this, but I always rag on her because she kind of pushed me away multiple times. When we started dating, only because on our first date, I told her, nice to meet you. I'm David, and thanks for driving 2 hours to meet up with me. I also drove 2 hours, about halfway. Our first day was in Morristown, New Jersey. Um, and at this brunch place, I told her that uh, after our first date, I was going to go down to Fort Polk, Louisiana for a month of training so I can train to deploy to the Middle East, essentially. Um, and that obviously does not go over well on a first date. And that's not something that somebody would want to commit to right off the bat. But like I said, with relentless pursuit of of loving Brie and falling in love with her the day we met. Uh, yeah, one thing led to another, and I wound up deploying um, in May of 2022, and only after that she decided that we were going to date. And so I returned from deployment. Things moved very fast. She came to a family wedding and met the entire crew, and yeah, we've been madly in love ever since. And yeah, so she's always been along for the ride, although a bumpy one. And although any military spouse can tell you it is not easy to support us service members. Um, but yeah, so she just proved to be the one. And uh, I proposed to her the day after the Project Endure event, and with the help of Oliver Meredith, shout out Oliver. He hid in the bushes at Rittenhouse Square Park in Philadelphia, and captured uh, uh, one of the best moments of my life. And uh, and yeah, we I proposed to her in the place where we definitely fell in love. And um yeah, I've always known from the beginning that she was the one. And uh got married shortly after. Then we're gonna have a family wedding this summer at our home in North Carolina, where we'll be moving to. And uh yeah, this is the beginning of the rest of our lives, essentially. And she and I are super excited.
Yeah, it's funny from my perspective to sit here and listen to that whole thing, because we met around May of 2022 when you were deploying, and I didn't even realize that that was the beginning of your relationship with Bree, because when I met you guys together in person for the first time and we talked on the phone, and a lot of times just you and me, but there were a few times where she was in the car, and I just got the sense that you guys were together forever, even though I didn't know it had only been a year, which is crazy. And then, yeah, just Oliver being able to capture that moment for you. And Oliver's a previous client of mine and a good friend. And to have that weekend in Philadelphia where so many great people who I know from different walks of life could come together, and then I could watch that connection unfold and him help capture such a special moment was really special for me from afar. So I loved hearing that. Now, to get into the meat and potatoes of this conversation, we'll start with the first big question, and it's coming. But what is the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle in life that you did not get to choose for yourself?
Um, the first one that comes to mind is the injury that I sustained through our client coach relationship, actually. Um, let's see. So yeah, happy 1 year anniversary to us. First of all, yeah, about May of last year, we began our client coach relationship. And I outlined my training objectives, and what I wanted to accomplish, specifically uh, to attend an army school that has been notorious for being highly difficult and has unknown standards. I would imagine probably a coaching challenge for you as well because of those unknown standards. And it was just as difficult for me because of the nature of the unknown. And in this process, I developed a condition that you helped me diagnose over the phone. And so thank you, Dr. Joe. Um, the tibialis posterior tendinopathy, which is the degradation of is that right? Or yeah, of my tibialis posterior tendon, which holds up the arch of my left foot. Now, I'm a flat-footed person, and I'm also like over 200 pounds, and running is my weakness, and running is exactly what I had to do in order to get faster at running. And um, through I would probably label this as overtraining. Yeah, I began to get injured. I pushed through that injury because it's all I know to do is just push through pain, and that is very irresponsible when you are a serious athlete. Uh, so yeah, I just was not very smart about that injury, and um, yeah, so you helped me overcome the difficulties and the really murky waters of uh, of climbing back up. And I originally intended on attending this school in uh, October of last year, uh, and I have not been able to do so. I was not able to do so until February. Yeah, about 4 months later. So, um, with multiple return to run programs and multiple re-injuries, it was no athlete likes to be hurt. Uh, I kind of felt like have you ever seen Friday Night Lights, the movie? Remember Booby Miles in the X-ray room, and he's told that I don't know, like he broke his ankle or something like that. I forget what, or no, it was a ACL injury, um, and he was just like, "Who paying you?" Right? So that's like really how I felt. To be told that I am injured, to accept that I'm injured, uh, to to take not one but multiple steps back in my training that we have made significant progress on at the time. Um, and it was just really devastating to me because like I said before, like I am I am a man of my word, because I said I would go, I will. Um, and it started to look like I was going to have to go in injured, which is not advisable. Um, and just was not a good sight. It was not a good feeling to know that I was injured. But yeah, with your help, you were able to really help me overcome that difficult season of my life of being injured. Um, and uh, and yeah, so that was we'll talk a little bit more about what happened afterwards, but that was a huge hill to overcome, and that was something I did not choose. But with the right mindset and with the right coaching, I was able to overcome.
There's a lot to unpack there. I'll start by saying I have a lot of clients who fall all over the place in terms of how hard they need to be pushed, and in a lot of cases, how hard they need to be pulled back. And you were on the far end where you needed a leash at times, and like I wasn't strong enough to pull you back. It was like, "Hey, Dave, run 2 miles, take it easy. We need to, take it easy on the leg." And then you'd call me next week and be like, "It's really hurting." I'd be like, "How was the 2 miles?" And you'd be like, "I ran 10." um, that was an exaggeration, but there was that, I think, period where you were almost in denial that this was something that was happening and that, we needed to maybe slow down so that we could speed up. And it's a hard process. Any person navigating an injury while trying to train and push forward, it's messy, it's uncertain, it looks different from person to person. But I think just the hardest part for me was watching this grown man who's such a big physical presence and a really strong human being, like not even a physical standpoint from that perspective, just strong as a person, have these moments where you could just hear the softness in your voice, and like I'd picture you on the other end of the phone and feel like maybe you were slumped over, just like head between your knees kind of thing. And I could tell how much it hurt, because you wanted this so bad. And long story short, we got there, and I'll let you talk about that as that comes up in this conversation. But it was just such a pleasure getting to watch you go through the ups and downs and to be there with you, to be your friend through that process, to be your coach through that process was an honor. And from my perspective, I know I told you this throughout that process, I had zero doubt ever. And I'm curious if you had doubts yourself as you went through that process and what those doubts felt like, if you had them.
Yeah, absolutely. When injured, doubt is the first thing that floods your mind with the goals in mind. Um, and with the support system that I had, and I'm a man of faith, and with the power of prayer, through via my support system and the network of people who we know through churches and whatnot. I knew that that my friends and family had my back, and so did God. And um, yes, there was doubt, and I overcame that just from putting trust in in myself first, and to and just with the comfort of knowing that there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and that hard times don't last and hard men do. And that was a quote that I held on very close to my chest um, when I was uh, enduring Ranger School in the Army, and this is a very long leadership school. Many documentaries and videos about it. You know, it's that to that was at that point in time the hardest thing I had done in my life, and that was what I could compare my my struggles to. Like, I've been at my wit's end, I've been at my wall, I've been at my point of muscle failure and my breaking point, emotionally and physically. Um, and I held that up next to Ranger School, and I was like, you know what? It's really not bad right now. I have proper nutrition, I have proper sleep, uh I have communication with my support system. All three of those things I did not have, while enduring that hardship for 62 days. So it was uh it was something to overcome. It wasn't easy to overcome, but yeah, again, the injury is not the reason why I'm here. And
In terms of the question, I was curious, that doubt crept in, and you felt it and you just talked about that. Was there a moment where you realized that you were going to make it and that it was going to be okay? And was that before you got to this objective? Was it in the middle of the objective? Was it only when you got to the end of that objective? When did you realize that you were indeed going to overcome the doubts that had crept in throughout the process?
uh, yeah, so I took multiple steps back, and I sprung forward even more. And um, I don't think it really crept in until I was there in the arena. Uh, when I was there and fully concentrated on the task at hand. And for those listening, this is what I'm talking about in a vague sense is a difficult army school that was aforementioned. I I won't directly name the name of the school due to the non-disclosure agreement I've signed. So I'm going to talk about it in a little bit of a vague sense, just as a difficult thing that I've done. But um, it was it was super difficult to think about. It was something that uh, because of the nature of the unknown, was so difficult to kind of build expectation for. And so when when we toe the line of a marathon, we know exactly the distance that's ahead of us. When we toe the line of this school in particular with the military, there is very little expectation. There's a general base of knowledge of what's about to happen, but the finish line is unknown. And with each day is a small victory. Each day there's multiple events that are graded, and each of these events I am watching men of my equal or and greater than me to I'm watching these guys fail. I'm watching guys who are well more experienced than I am, and guys who I would otherwise look up to as role models. And uh, with each day, I knew I had the power of my support system and prayer behind me. Um, each day was a victory. There were a lot of unknown runs and unknown ruck marches with about 75 pounds of equipment on my back, and stuff that we worked towards together. And uh, uh, many guys are cut from the back of the herd. Uh, there's an unknown pace, unknown distance. Um, yeah, and then there's a bunch of land navigation included in this as well, and um, that really degraded the body a lot. And with each day, again, more men are failing, and I felt the fire inside of me begin to grow. Um, the tiny spark began a full engulf flame, and yeah, I mean, like, as I watched other men fail, and this is really like weird to hear myself say, but as I watched other people fail, it only it only made me want it more. The Just watching somebody who I would consider one of the toughest men in our nation's military toe the line for the same reason I did, and then quit before me is enthralling. It sounds a bit sadistic to say, and but if you've ever endured a difficult school in the military, or uh, or just like a job application, and you survive multiple rounds of interviews, and like you're like, okay, good, I made it past that guy. I was kind of scared of that guy before. That guy's bigger than me. He's faster than me. I don't know why they cut him. I'm not gonna bother to ask why. I'm just going to focus on my own race, my own game. Um, and yeah, so it was until the third week is where I really thought I was going to be able to make it. Um and I throughout this journey, um geez, I think like 2 weeks into the training, I had rucked well over 100 miles with this rucksack on my back through the woods, through unknown distance ruck marches, and runs. And my tibialis posterior tendinopathy began to come back. It was reminding me that it was there. It never left. There was pain in every step. And then, insult to injury, come blisters. For any military listeners, they are no stranger to blisters, and no stranger to the caloric deficit that comes as a part of training. So my body was slowly breaking down, and I knew it was happening, but I had been there before, and I had something to hold that against. And um, so yeah, towards the third week came what I want to talk about. Was the worst day of my life.
Before we get there, I just want to throw in a few quick things. First, you're the first person in over 100 episodes to use the word aforementioned, which and impressive. That's that's a first on the podcast. And then also, I know you have to be careful with how you talk about all of this, and we're gonna keep it vague. But it also sounds a lot like life in a lot of ways. You go to a marathon, you know exactly where the finish line is. You go to this, these 3 weeks or this essentially, like, you step into the unknown is what I'm saying. And that's why I think what you're talking about and what we'll talk more about is really powerful, because you have to show up each and every day not knowing what's ahead of you. And this is a very condensed, intense experience. However, life is the same. We wake up every day and we have no idea what's ahead of us. We have no idea what we'll have to overcome, what we'll have to work through, what we'll have to go around. And so, for anybody listening, if you can't relate directly to Dave's experience with this experience, just know that all the same principles apply to life. And with that lens that we're going to listen to this through, what's the hardest thing you've ever had to do in your life? I'm assuming that it's this experience, and it sounds like you're getting toward the hardest day of your life. And so, what's the hardest thing you've ever had to do on purpose?
Yeah, so we've talked about I think 2 weeks worth of training at the school. Every day up until this point was individually graded. So my individual performance was looked at through a very critical lens, and through exactly what you're talking about. Problem solving is now what I'm going to be graded on. As an officer, this is something that we are expected to have, a very familiar sense of. And um and yeah, so this third week you're now working as a team. You are dealt with a problem, and it always comes in a physical form. uh you have to move, like, I don't know, like X amount of water jugs, X amount of distance. And that distance winds up being, what was first unknown as we stepped off turned out to be like 5, 6, 7 miles. And your grip strength is completely shot, right? So we kind of had some expectation. We knew we had to work together as a team. And then came uh, a 35-degree day, which is characteristic of North Carolina in the month of February. And I was like, okay, I could deal with the cold. I've I've dealt with the cold many times in my life. And then came the rain, and I was like, okay, so this is going to be interesting now. So I could do cold, I could do rain, but when combined together, it makes for a very, very sad day. So, especially given the nature of what we are doing. So I want the listeners to kind of picture this as I try and formulate uh, the scene. So, in front of my, say, like 18-man team were uh, a wide array of these poles that weigh like 60, 70, 80 pounds. Um, there are multiple litters or stretchers in the army. um, and these stretchers have little sleeves for those poles through the sides. And we also have uh, lashings are this tubular nylon that we use to secure, that we wound up using to secure the poles together. So we made a series of three number sign shaped apparatuses with a litter in the middle. Now, what we had to put on that litter was simulating a down pilot, and we're rescuing multiple pilots from a crash site. So from this crash site, we picked them up, and the pilots are not people. The pilots are uh, big army duffel bags filled with sand. And remember, it's 35 degrees. It's cold. Remember, it's raining and things are getting wet. Now my equipment is getting wet. Like, by the way, we have rucksacks on our back that weigh 75 pounds. And when you're getting rained on, your load is only getting heavier. When you're getting rained on, those sandbags are going to absorb every drop of water that it comes into contact with. Um, so when we assembled these three, again, these number sign looking apparatuses, it was just big enough to have one guy on each four legs of the apparatus. Now they were so the deal was to share the load among the four men, and you'd put the pole across your rucksack uh, around the back of it. And when we picked these things up, like just the four of us were not able to pick it up. Like this is an 8-man job because this thing, I swear, probably weighed upwards of 500 pounds. And when that load is shared among only four guys who already have 75 pounds on their back, it does not inspire confidence. Let's just say that. Um, I can really only compare this feeling to uh, imagine, getting under a barbell to perform a squat, 1 or 3 rep max, and you get that bar off the rack and you have that sensation of, whoa, this is heavy. So that's kind of how heavy it was. Like I would probably equate it to like upwards of like 250 pounds, or it felt like 225 on top of on top of our load already. And so we had to walk. That was the only thing to do, was walk. And um it felt like a joke. It felt so heavy that I was like, this is crazy. This is they can't expect us to carry this amount of weight. Like this is the heaviest thing I've ever picked up before. Um but I did have the comfort of knowing that although I was suffering badly, I was wet and I was cold, I knew that all the other men on my team were feeling the same exact way. And that alone is enough to keep me warm just for another 5 seconds, and uh keep me dry for another 10 seconds, or at least feel like I am. So all we could do is walk, and we're taking about 6-inch steps in front of us, because we can't take full steps. We can't take a full stride because of the sheer amount of weight that we are bearing on our shoulders. Um, and these are the toughest men I have ever been around. And I'm at this time so honored to be among these men and honored to have made it this far. And my father told me before I said goodbye to go off to the school, um, we didn't get this far to get this far. And uh, my father, Craig, his voice just came into my head, and it was a constant reminder that I didn't get this far to get this far. Uh, so yeah, it was painful. And we were taking these small 6 to 8 inch steps, little by little, and every like 250 feet or so, we were putting them down. We were screaming for help, like, and panic starts to set in. Like guys begin to reach muscle failure, and there are 4 guys on each of these 3 apparatuses, and then there's another small apparatus that only requires 2 guys to carry. And then there are 3 guys that aren't carrying anything. Now these guys are the floaters. These guys are each tapping a guy on the shoulder, giving him a break, and then the next guy who just got the break, counts out loud for 20 seconds, and then gives the next guy a break. That's how we decided to break up the work and rest ratio. Um, so we're about 3 hours into this unknown distance movement, and there are multiple other teams out there performing the same task, and we're the only ones in sight. Like, we know we're in last place. We know it's the doubt starts to fill in, right? Like, we're cold, we're wet, we're miserable. Our hands don't work because of the we're just so cold. So I remember thinking to myself, this is the coldest I've ever been in my life. 35 degrees and raining is not very great, especially when you are under that sort of physical duress. And I wasn't I wasn't being starved or deprived of sleep as much as I had in the past, but uh, my body was certainly perceiving the weather conditions in an extreme way. So, uh, and I again, I knew everybody else was about the same way. So, um, about 2 or 3 hours into this movement, we had probably only gotten a mile, 2 miles, uh, and it was just super difficult. And like I said, doubt begins to set in, and just knowing that you're reaching muscle failure and feeling your spine compressing under the sheer amount of weight uh, is uh, is pretty scary. And and for the first time in my career, I thought I was going to die, because there was nothing uh, that was going to catch what what was rested on my shoulders. And I thought I was going to die after I watched the leader of our team go down. Now this is a military school with no rank. We are just wearing numbers, and we refer to each other as our roster numbers that we wear on our uniforms. Like, we wouldn't call each other Joe or Dave. Like we are, number 210 and number 311. So yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Those, anybody who was there who might be listening will definitely, give me a lot of crap for even talking about this, but they will be, nodding their head in in agreement of the pain and the overall experience. Um, so yeah, we would only be able to call each other by our numbers, but um, I watch, I think it was like number 62 or whatever, but 62 goes down, and 62 was like the unspoken leader of the group because he had been to this school twice before. Um, both times he failed on this day. And I remember having a conversation with him the previous night that he wanted to prove to his sons uh, that he was not a quitter, and although faced with failure multiple times, like, he didn't give up on his dream. And he under the weight of this apparatus, he passed out. Um, and then panic begins to set in again among who I would consider some of the toughest men in our nation's military. Uh, a lot of combat experience between these men, a lot of life experience, even, um, and one of us goes down, and it is scary. It's not, it's the guy didn't quit. We're far beyond the point of weeding out the quitters. Like, we are now at the point of bodily failure. And I never saw him again after that. But I watched the instructors and medics run over to him. We definitely knew it was a problem when he wasn't coming to after like 30 seconds of a sternum rub. And yeah, it was scary. So panic really began to set in, and that's when I thought, like, I was going to die. Um, and it's kind of ridiculous to think that you're going to die, especially in a training environment. But because there was nothing catching this apparatus. Like, I thought that that my legs were going to fail, just like his did, and the weight of the apparatus would buckle, and just crush me. Like, you know, uh, it's kind of, yeah, it's just difficult to just remember and try and bring to into words what uh what it felt like. So he goes down. Now we're down one floater because one of those floaters needs to bump into his position. The and all you can do, you can't go and help him. You can't go talk to him. You can't do anything. One, because you're locked in to the weight that's on top of you, and two, it's a rule. You can't help someone who's down, and you can't uh it's that really does add to the nervousness and to the anxiety that is now being shared at a rapid pace among who I would consider a lot of the toughest men in the world. Um, so now one guy next to me, as we begin to walk again, he starts to panic a lot, and so he's saying stuff like, "Oh God, I'm gonna drop it. I'm gonna drop it. Oh my God, somebody come help me! Some come!" Like, he's screaming, like, "Come help me! Come help me! Like, I'm going to drop it. I'm gonna pass out. Oh my God!" And so, we kept on tending to him, and he just kept on hogging up the rest. Yeah, exactly. Uh, so now the instructors who are watching us very closely notice the weak link. He's now made himself apparent, and uh, so we continue to try and motivate him, and like, dude, like, it's gonna be over. I can't tell you when, but I'm gonna suffer right here next to you. And he just continued the entire way, uh, saying, he was gonna drop it, yada yada yada. Um, but this not only uh, made others nervous, but now another guy quits. This was like a this guy was just like, "Yep, I'm done." Like, ducks out, the entire apparatus falls, eh, and nobody was injured, thank God. But um, you know, it's again, it's so difficult to take these things off of your back and then put back on. It's a full team effort. Um, So now we only have one guy to bump around and float, and so my spine just felt compressed. There was no other way to describe it, but I really felt like the cartilage between my vertebrae was holding on for dear life, and I just felt like my vertebrae were touching every single one of them. Like, uh, and and today I'm an inch shorter, and uh, I've yeah, I've lost an inch off my height from my experiences in this and ranger school. Um, I entered the army at 6 feet even, and today I'm 5'11", something I don't like to admit to a lot of people. But yeah, so I just felt my spine really compressing. I'm like, oh, there goes another inch off my height again. Uh, but anyways, we're down two guys. One guy went down for medical reasons, just passed out. Another guy quit, and another guy is on the brink of quitting. The identified weak link. And so the instructors see this and they want to exploit that. And so they just ramped up the pace. Like, we were not able to set down the apparatus for a certain amount of time that the instructor dictated. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to murder another human being. Uh, and the the very choice words uh, that were said in disgust of this man, like, just bringing absolute hell on all of us, like, something I wouldn't repeat. Like, some stuff about his wife, some stuff about, his kids, and these guys wanted this guy's head. Um, and he wouldn't allow us to put it down. And so that that amped up with the intensity of anxiety among everybody, and before you know it, we're about 5 hours into this, and, um, we didn't put these things down for, I think, an hour and a half to 2 hours at that time, um, for another hour and a half to 2 hours. Uh, so I, I let's see, about, like, 6 hours into it, I lost my control of my bladder. I peed myself. I didn't really necessarily have the sensation like, "Oh, I need to pee," but I just started to pee, and I just lost all control of my bladder, um, and the guy next to me, again, "Oh my god, I'm gonna drop it, I'm gonna drop it." So here he goes again, um, and we're now like probably 7 hours into this, and the sun is down. It's dark out. We only have our headlamps on our head to I guess help navigate our small 6-inch steps. Um, and it feels like there's a barbell on my back that will not leave and cannot get off of my back. So I uh I said a quick prayer. Um, I asked God, I was like, God, if I could cash in on all of the prayer that is being said on my behalf right now. Not that it works like that or anything, but I don't know how it works. So I'm gonna ask if I can just cash in right now. If you could just take away some pain, uh, I will be forever grateful. Again, this guy's screaming next to me. I need to, I need to get out of here, yada yada yada. And then the instructor's telling him just quit then, but he won't. Like, to his credit, he would not quit. He would complain a lot, and he was very clearly the weak link that we would later, uh, write negative peer evaluations on him. But he didn't quit, and but I was at that point in time the coldest I've ever been in my life, the wettest I've ever been, uh, wearing a uniform, and in the most pain I had ever been in my life. In so much pain, I peed myself, and in so much pain, I was just moaning and groaning, and I couldn't I couldn't move my shoulders in such a way to take the pain away. Um, you're able to usually make little adjustments during a race, during any endurance event, but during this one, you just can't escape. The escape is easy. The way out is just quitting, and a lot of guys found that escape. But I could not find it within myself, because I said I would go, because I said I would attend this, and because I prayed that it was. I wanted it the hard way. I wanted to earn my way out of that school the hard way that, granted, many men before me had done, and I had the comfort of knowing that they came out alive and in one piece. Um, and again, I said that prayer to try and just cash out on the pain a little bit, um, and just to take away a little bit of the pain, I I, like, blacked out for about 30 minutes. I came to, and I was in a world of pain again, but I hadn't remembered what went on, but I looked down, I was still walking on 2 feet, I was still breathing. I took a sip of water, I was like, "Whoa, holy crap, let's not do that again." But I don't know what happened, but for a moment, I was free, I was fleeting, uh, time just went by so fast, uh, and yeah, and so at about, uh, I don't know what time it was, but we we're just looking at every single bend in the road to slowly approach it, and about like 20 minutes pass, and we're finally at the bend in the road on this like dirt road, and like we can finally like see around the corners. Like, is this it? Is this it? But 8 hours go by, and we're looking at each bend in the road and each hill that we crest with these things on our back, and the finish line isn't there. and the finish line is just continues to move away from us almost like we just thought that it was never going to end. And that is an experience that I had never ever thought I would find myself in. And even when I was preparing for the unknown, which I had learned is something you can never prepare for, um, I really had an appreciation for life. I had an appreciation for the things that I've done, and I told myself out loud, I said, "This is the worst day of my life. I'm in so much pain right now, and uh, but I won't quit. Like these guys next to me have the same exact mentality. They are of my equal. Like these guys are in so much pain, and I found a way to kind of hide the pain on my face at least, and just really internalize it. And it was just it was a lot. It was a lot, and we finally saw the lights of the compound that we were trying to approach, and we were finally able to take it off of our backs, and like a bunch of us just collapsed. We could not move. We could not get up. The blisters under our feet were agonizing. Later, we took our boots off, and they were just blood blistered, and our feet were red and purple, and um, just bloody. And I just I looked up, and I was so thankful that it was finally over. And meanwhile, we still had another 3 days of that hell. But we knew through the rumors that that was the hardest event, and through my training, uh, and through the training that you outlined for me, like this was, although we were always preparing for an unknown distance, unknown pace, there is nothing that you can ever prepare for to prepare yourself, to an unknown distance. Uh, you never know when it's going to end. Like I said, during an Ironman, during a marathon, like you know when it's going to end. There are many people cheering you on, and there are many, there's lights and cameras, and races are so happy. And in this point in time, there was nothing but you and the men next to you and the pain cave. That is really what all I could equate it to. Um, but yeah, that right there was the hardest day of my life, and uh, I'll forever cherish that day, and I'll forever be thankful for that day because grew a couple more hairs on my chest, and I'm glad to have that notch on my belt, uh, and now I have something else to equate any other hard time in my life to. So that's the hardest thing I've done on purpose.
I mean, there are so many questions that one could ask. I think the one that keeps coming back to mind for me, and then we'll move on, is just why, you know? I know you said that you would do this, and that's reason enough, but beneath that reason alone and the simple fact that you said you would do this, why not quit? Why pursue this in the first place? Why show up and push your mind and body past its breaking point and then continue? Why do those things?
So I appreciate that question, because it's something that's super important to me. Is my why, and many times I have had conversations with people, um, in a military context at least. I'll be talking to I'll just paint a scenario for you. So I'm at a bar talking to somebody who is a veteran or recently out of the military, and I tell them what I do, and then you know a lot of old veterans love talking about their service, and they talk about the things that they've done and the things that they've accomplished, and what always comes to light, always seems to be the same motif, is what I wish I had done. I I had gotten injured, so I couldn't go to ranger school. My wife had a baby, so family was a very good reason to uh, change your priorities, and our priorities always change, especially as we gain more experience in life. Uh, but I saw this pattern of men telling me what they wish they had done, and I I was mature enough to realize that I was in at the time I was that I made this decision. Like I'm the best shape of my life. I'm young, and I'm dumb enough to say yes to whatever comes across my plate. Um, and I know one day I'm going to be that old veteran on the bar stool telling the younger generation about the things I've done, and I do not want to have a single regret. I do not want to have a single stone unturned. I want I want to be able to tell the cool stories. I want to be able to look my kids in the eye and tell them that their father did not quit, and that their father towed the line of the unknown, uh and looked adversity in the face, and looked failure in the face, and was not afraid of it. I want to be that example to someone else. Um and that alone is enough motivation for me to go on and and really look anything in the face and try to accomplish it, pass or fail. Like i I now have the confidence to uh to do a lot of things that I might not otherwise think that I can. So I hope that answers.
It answers it. It answers it for sure. And I think the thing that resonates deeply with me, and I'm sure with a lot of people listening, is that you know, the things we do in life are bigger than us. And I think in order to do anything great, in order to do anything meaningful, in order to endure anything hard, we need to have a reason. We need to have a why that's bigger than us, because at some point, something's going to come along that's a lot harder than we individually can handle if we lived in isolation in our minds, and that what we were doing was just for us, we would quit. There needs to be something more and something bigger. And so I love that. I appreciate that about you, admire that about you. Um, I am curious, when you hear the word endurance, what comes to mind for you, with the context of what you just described was an incredible feat of endurance, and not to mention strength and grit and willpower and whatnot. But what does the word endurance mean to you?
So endurance to me is the measurement of time or distance spent in an uncomfortable state, uh getting to know your wall, uh recognizing you're at your wall, and pushing that wall a little bit further. um i I have this I have this visualization when I'm working out, when I'm doing something hard, um I think a marathon is the best example. And I know you can relate to this because we've talked at great length, and I was grateful to hear your podcast and be able to relate so much to your New York City Marathon. Um, you hit your wall around what, 17, 18? Yeah, and uh not to brag, but I predicted that because I hit my wall as a bigger runner at that around that distance than you would too. And I told you that I hope it's painful. And uh I have this visualization of meeting that wall. Um, and only a few like-minded people have looked at that wall face to face. Like, it's not easy getting to that wall. I imagine, like, running through a storm of this like chemical that you can't breathe in, and you can only make it so far before you have to turn around and go back to cleaner, breathable air. And and every time I reach that wall, uh, I try and recognize that I'm at the wall, and I try and actively make the decision to push that wall a little bit further, so that the standard of endurance for my personal self is is that much more difficult to attain the next time. I can now endure longer next time. I can and I can graciously say that I pushed that wall and I took it miles uh, after the story I just shared with you. Um, when I ran my first marathon with some of my best friends, um, all of us bigger guys, all of us signed up for this marathon because somebody said we couldn't. A marathon runner said that we were too big to finish a marathon physically, and so guess what? We signed up for one and we did it. And but I reached my wall around 17, and I was like, holy crap! My quads are cramping so badly. My hip flexors don't work. My quads, my calves are falling off of the bone, and um, it was just it, I was able to like meet my wall, I think, really for the first time at during that marathon. Uh and since then I've just kind of craved to come face to face with that again. And I've taken a great amount of pride as an athlete, as a man, uh in being able to turn on the switch in a state of uncomfort, um to where I can proudly say that I can endure hard things. So yeah.
I've got a quote that I think speaks to what you were just saying. It's from Matt Fitzgerald, and he said, "Every athlete who has pushed beyond his or her known limits of endurance in the quest for improvement understands these sentiments. There is no experience quite like that of driving yourself to the point of wanting to give up and then not giving up. In that moment of raw reality, as Allen has called it, when something inside you asks, how bad do you want it? An inner curtain is drawn open, revealing a part of you that is not seen except in moments of crisis. And when your answer is to keep pushing, you come away from the trial with a kind of self-knowledge and self-respect that can't be bought." And, each time that we get to that wall, and that's a feat within itself, and then we choose to keep going, we learn about ourselves. We get closer to the core of who we are, or maybe better yet, who we can be. And I think it's a shame that most people never get to the wall, let alone push past it. And I hope that conversations like this, stories like this, people like you, can help people feel inspired to attempt to find the wall, to push past the wall when they get there, and to continually strive to grow and learn and discover who they can be. So, with that being said, before we get to the final question, I did want to ask, is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience before we start to wrap things up?
Yeah. Two things. First is I know you're a big quote guy, and I'm on. I was like on my drive here, I was like, I wonder what quote he's going to share with me, because I know you probably hand selected it for our conversation, and what you anticipated me to talk about. And after listening to so many of the Project Endure podcasts, like I was, yeah. So thank you for that. Please text that to me after we record. But I also wanted to share a quote with you. I saw this spray painted on a on a T wall in Iraq, and this is a T wall for any non-military listeners, is a barrier that protects soldiers from, or service members rather, from indirect fire, artillery coming in, and any sort of explosions that might damage infrastructure. So it protects the buildings around any infrastructure around the bases that we operate around. So it's also tradition to spray paint, unit logos, and write your name, when you rotate through the base, uh, like everyone's name in the unit, who you served with, the year, write like a beautiful mural or whatever. There's some really awesome artwork that you see in the Middle East. But I was on a run one morning, and saw this quote scribbled on a T wall, and this is just faded by the sun, and it was probably made up, maybe 20 years ago. It's barely legible, but it really spoke to me. And it says, you don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only chance you'll have. And anonymous, I guess, would be the source of this quote, but some soldier scribbled this on there with some very poor grammar and handwriting. But just the raw seeing that site, being where I was, put things into perspective for me. Many greater men before me had stepped foot on these grounds and have fought for their lives, and it put life into a different perspective for me. And uh, it really changed the way I approach the way I live every day, and especially the way I train. You don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only chance you have. And I focus on things I can control. That's my mindset. That's the way I approach a lot of problems. And I knew that if I focus on what I can control, my training, in this case, then when it's time to be strong, I will be powerful. I will win that fight. Uh, I will I will push harder than the man I'm fighting against. Whether it be a physical man or whether it be, reaching the finish line of a race. Like, I know that there will come times in my life where being strong is the only chance that I have to come out victorious. And with I'm sure fatherhood will definitely put things into perspective one day for me. And I I do have enough foresight to know that I want to be strong for my children. I want to be strong for Bree, and I want to be able to last longer and go farther than anybody else. Uh, so yeah.
Such powerful, inspiring, and beautiful words. And you showed me the picture as you shared that, just to see it, you know, on a plain wall, faded by the sun. You're right. Handwriting, grammar, not great. But the message is what matters. And I really appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, I think this probably transitions into the final question anyway. But there are people out there who have never and will never serve our country the way that you have and you are. And thank you for that, by the way. There are people who don't understand a lot of the struggles that you talked about to the degree that you experience them, because that's not something a lot of human beings experience. But there are people out there who are struggling. There are people out there who are dealing with their own hard, and hard is relative. And so if somebody listening to this is going through a really hard time, tough season, dark experience, and they're just not sure what to do, how to think about it, or just how to move forward, what would you say to them if you get to speak right now?
So very, very seldom do people come across my life where I get to share an answer to a question like that. And I'm first of all, I'm honored to be able to speak to your audience in this capacity. And I truly believe for someone going through a tough season of life, um, and this is David Wallace speaking. I'm not trying to be super general here. I'm trying to address somebody who is going through a difficult season of life. But I would say that life does not start getting easy until you start to do things that are hard. I through all of the seasons um of doing hard things, like there were a lot of step backs, a lot of failure, I experienced failure from a young age, and from a very relative young age in my military career. And failure is what made me who I am. Failure is learning, and uh, I I chose to continue to bet on myself. I continued to choose to toe the line and face failure in the face, and um, I wanted to go and try my hand at what were revered to be super difficult tasks and schools and whatnot. And I'm so proud that I did. And I'm proud, even more proud of my failures because they really shaped me to who I am. Uh, but yeah, I uh, I bet on myself, and I implore others to do exactly that, and to embrace failure and to stand fearless in the face of failure, because what lies for you on the other side is glory. And uh, I truly believe that tough times never last, and tough people do. So uh, yeah, yeah.
There was so much in there that I think will speak to a lot of people listening, and I just I can't tell you how much I appreciate this conversation, how much I appreciate you. I want to end on a lighter note. I have a couple awards that you won. Well, really, it's one award you won 3 times. You did mention 3 separate words on this podcast that have never been spoken before. I jotted down as we spoke. Aforementioned was first, duress was number 2, and motif was number 3. So that's impressive. Also, just on the topic of endurance, people listening shouldn't be able to hear this, but Theo, our puppy, was barking the entire time through this podcast. So to be able to focus in on this conversation and get so deep and so meaningful through that, kudos to you, because that's not easy. He's not used to the in-person podcast yet. We'll get him there. And then I guess last, Dave, if you can speak to it, and maybe you have to stay vague here, but I am curious, and for the people listening, what's next for you after this is now behind you and you're a married man?
So yeah, thank you. I'm glad I earned those 3 awards. Shout out to my parents for buying a, what was it? It was like a top 500 SAT word shower curtain in high school. And so every time I would take a shower, I would just read SAT words and their definitions. So so I'll tell them about that. But yeah, so first of all, I do want to mention that although vague, I do want to remain a professional in what I do, and being a steward of my profession. It's not exactly met with grace to see people of my peers, you know, go to a public setting and speak about what we do. So this is again new for me, and I'm trying to gather the right words to say. That's why you kind of heard me like lose my train of thought, and and so shout out to Theo, but I am trying to remain uh, as a guardian of what I do, and hopefully I maybe inspired somebody to enlist, uh, uh, or just think about doing something, signing up for a race or something. But yes, I was a little bit vague. But what was sorry, what was the question again?
What's next?
Yeah, what's next is a move down to North Carolina with my wife and starting our future together. Um, and I am kind of riding uh the victory of being successful at the school that we were just talking about. Um, and I am kind of in a slump of gaining back the weight that I lost. I lost about 25 pounds when I was there. And like I said, an inch off my height. So Uh, I am right now recovering from lots of injuries. Tore a lot of ligaments in my feet, and I continued to had to wear an adult diaper after I got home for about like 2.5 weeks because I continued to have those bladder issues. Um, and yeah, so I'm recovering from a lot of overtraining and stress on the body. So what's next is I get to move next Saturday and finally live under the same roof as Bree uh, for the first time since our first date in December of last year, and so um or 2 years ago now. Geez, uh so yeah, like I'm super excited to start my future with her and to build a foundation with her, and to continue to live out the dream, and to try and just be a good role model to my children one day. So
I'm excited to watch that next chapter unfold. And I know there are a lot of people listening who would love to reach out and just say thank you, to reach out and connect, to reach out and follow along with what you have going on next. Where's the best place for people to do that?
yeah, so anybody who listens to you is a absolutely has a seat at my table. And uh, I am super proud to connect with anybody who's listening to this. And you can find me on Instagram. My handle is Dave Wally _ um, or at email David A Wallace 314 at Gmail. Um, I'd be super proud to talk to anybody who's willing to reach out. And uh yeah, again, very proud to have a seat at your table, and uh I hope to afford the same thing to anybody who reaches out to me. Uh so yeah, thank you.
You always have a place here, Dave. And I'll link those things down below so people can find it easily. And just thank you again for this conversation. I don't think I've told you enough, but I'm incredibly proud of you and very, very, very grateful for our friendship. And this is just the beginning. So can't wait to see where it goes, man. Thank you again.
Thanks, Joe.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.